Now for a review of what's making the headlines in the papers, we'll now be looking at, we'll now embark on the newspaper review here with me, Constance Ikoku.
Yes, let's look at those top stories that are shaping the agenda of the day. We'll begin with this day newspaper. The FG presidential pardon still under review, no convict released yet. Senate confirms Amopita as INEC chair. FG, over $1 billion private sector investment mobilized to boost CNG adoption. Daily Independent, new INEC boss vows to restore Nigeria's trust in commission. Oil output slumps to 7-month low as strikes, others disrupt production. Senate leadership in disarray over Electoral Act amendment. The Guardian, how praise singers override party agenda, scorecards at rallies. Heavy reliance on domestic debt exposed Nigeria to financial risks, IMF warns. Defections, legal disputes rock PDP as APC governors project strength, unity in Kebbi. Daily Sun, INEC chair to Nigerians, I will restore confidence. Nnamdi Kanu is medically fit to stand trial, ailment not life-threatening, NMA tells court. Wike blasts Obi over criticism of FCT schools, questions his leadership record. NEC approved 28 billion naira to close 7 million metering gap. The leadership newspaper, new electoral chief Amopita's credible election pledge sparks responses. Dangote seeks legal backing for Nigeria First policy. Vanguard, why we've not released inmate pardon by Tinubu AGF. Suicide takes center stage as Vanguard's third mental health summit holds today. In 2027, APC most have taken over. INC scribe cries out. New Telegraph, finally on the local front. FOI, INEC demands 1.5 billion naira from law firm for access to voters register. Amid outrage, FG says release of Mariam Sanda, 81 others still being reviewed. Then DHQ, why soldiers are yet to get their allowances. 2024 capital budget suffers setback over poor execution. Moving on to the international headlines. Daily Mail, Andrew and spy chief at the heart of China's scandal. Financial Times, China hits out at smear campaign as row deepens over collapsed spy case. We also have metro.co.uk, whose side are you on, Secure? That's a big question to the Prime Minister. Daily Express, ban on Israeli funds is a national disgrace. And we have also the Daily Telegraph, asset-rich pensioners in crosshairs for Reeves' budget tax raid. The Guardian, MPs press top prosecutor over collapse of spy case. And finally, the Times newspaper, state workers lean towards Britain's rival. Then let's go back to this day newspaper. We'll begin with the story on the confirmation of the INEC chair, Professor Ojo Amopita. So we have that story equally in the Vanguard, where it says, INEC, in my time, losers will congratulate winners, says newly confirmed Independent National Electoral Commission Chairman, Professor Joash Amopita. That's a big promise. Amopita also seeks the establishment of Electoral Offences Commission. He's preparing for Anambra polls, vows to restore confidence in the electoral process. The Anambra polls will hold in November. This will be Amopita's first major assignment. He will face intense scrutiny. Won't he? He has to show neutrality, credibility, and deal with those logistical issues that hamper smooth running of elections.
Yeah, I would like to say congratulations to Joash Amopita, the new INEC chairman, who came highly recommended with a high pedigree of credentials. Well, in as much as he's coming with this, he has his work cut out, and you could see the concerns being raised by the Senate. We did a wonderful job scrutinizing and getting his view on some of these issues that shows both an internal weakness and a structural weakness in our political transition process. November 8th would be the Anambra governorship election, its first test. This is coming just almost less than a month till that date.
Yes.
And that still shows some of the structural lapses that we're talking about. You can't be appointing a leader for such a crucial assignment with just few days for him to plan ahead. But definitely, it's only a bad craftsman that complains of not giving an effective tool. So he has no excuse. He has shown that he has the competence with a very rich resume to back it up. So he has said that losers will congratulate the winners, which shows that it's going to be credible, it's going to be transparent and accountable. And he has also been able to identify some of the flaws and pitfalls and landmines in the nation's electoral landscape, which mainly deals with logistics, especially in lack of power supply in some of these areas, and also connecting with the interlands where elections will be holding. So he was able to respond to many of these issues, and also the call for the need to offenses commission is also the right way to go. But does he have the political will? Does he have the mandate? Does he have the resources to make a difference in a desperate polity that calls for urgent intervention? That's the question that we will be seeing in his handling of the Anambra governorship election in November 8th.
At the confirmation, he was hitting the right notes, talking about restoring confidence to the electoral system. He talked about winners. Losers will now have to congratulate losers, right? Losers will have to congratulate the winners. And then he's also talking about the establishment of an electoral offenses commission. That's going to
and also the internal discipline,
yes,
because there is the issue of the collation officers, and must it be an academic professor that will be handling that role? So those are the issues that have always been a sticking point in most of our electoral process.
I want to come to the Electoral Offenses Commission. If he succeeds in doing that, that could be a game changer. I mean, we have a lot of electoral offenses in this country. We have the issues of vote buying. We have the issues of those thugs and compromise officials, both INEC officials, and then compromise politicians as well, causing problem. You have those that perpetuate violence during elections. So all of these are matters that have not been taken so seriously in the past. I think because INEC, the INEC chairman or INEC the chairman and his team did not see this as their responsibility or did not have the tools to tackle that. Now he is suggesting it. So I think everyone will be watching to see where this goes. Will it be another bureaucratic institution, or will it be one that has and can bite? So that will be the big question at the end of the day. Electoral malpractice certainly needs to be dealt with in this country.
And I think the National Assembly needs to support him with the right electoral act and to speed up the electoral amendment process. This would really help a lot in giving him that political backing to deliver the mandate.
Yeah, we're coming to that. They just stepped down the electoral process. Let's see the next story in this day newspaper. It says FG presidential pardon still under review. No convict released yet. That story also features in Daily Independent. There, Tinubu's pardon for convicted criminals under review. That's according to Attorney General of the Federation, Mr. Lateef Fagbemi, Senior Advocate of Nigeria. So this clarification came amidst umbrage over the pardon of convicted drug offenders, murderers, and criminals. None of these people have been released, we're being told, as the clemency is still in a final administrative stage to ensure all names comply with established legal and procedural requirements. Normally, after approval by the Council of State, the next stage allows for an examination of the list before an instrument of implementation is then forwarded to the Comptroller General for of Corrections for action. The thought is, here we go again. Will there be a somersault in this list yet again, as we have had in the past? Why announce the list before final review? You know, if it did not happen, it wouldn't have been, all we are seeing now, the umbrage, the criticism wouldn't have arisen if they had just waited, you know, gone through the list properly and made sure that everything is done before announcing it. What do you think about that?
Yeah, this is coming amidst pent-up emotions trailing this issue of pardon because of the what is considered the grievous nature of some of these offenses. But when we look at Section 175 of the Constitution that grants the President the power of pardon, that indicates it makes it the ultimate judge when it comes to federal offenses, and that gives him that sweeping discretionary powers to exercise in choosing who to grant this prerogative of mercy. But when you look at it deeply, I understand that because of the gravity of the offenses, we have shown a lot of emotional concern on many of these issues. But when we also look at the word pardon, someone cannot be innocent and you are granting him pardon. It shows that for whatever the category of offenses of offense might be, it has established the fact that the person had defaulted,
yes, of
in
course,
one way or the other. So
they
there's not
convicted.
going to be a clean person that will be granted pardon.
Well, they were
so I think
convicted
there's
already.
a need for, yes, I think there's a need for an emotional restraint because, and this process is going to be selective, no matter how, there's no way the president can grant all the prisoners pardon. That would be a sine qua non to anarchy.
So that's not the issue. The issue they are saying is that the kind of people that were granted the pardon, drug trafficking, that it undermines the fight against drug trafficking in the country.
Yes, but when you look at the global reform that is being clouted all over the world, the prison reform to correctional services, it's de-emphasized the need for capital punishment. Because if you look at it, even in philosophy, there is what is called utilitarian principle. That's the ethical judgment that decides on the highest good, that what benefits the nation most. So the it still goes full cycle. That the president, it's a very troublesome, worrisome dilemma that the president is saddled to make this very tough decision. But whatever decision it makes, the person granted pardon must have been an ex-convict. So we must realize that, and I don't think that for you to have been convicted, that indicates that you must have committed a serious offense. As in the case of Mary Sanders, that has really erupted so much emotion. I think we cannot allow the social media influence to redefine who we are as a people. And that's the point. Nobody prays that he loses his or her loved ones. But if he has served some prison, for some level of jail terms, and he's pleading for mercy, and the president finds it in line with his discretion to grant him this amnesty, well, okay, we can only leave that at the desk of the Mr. President.
Since you mentioned the Mariam Sanda case, the argument is that, okay, she was sentenced to death for the murder of her husband. So what would have been expected of the president is to take steps like, for instance, reduce it to life sentence. And then after reducing it to life sentence... Again,
that's your discretion.
Can I finish?
Okay.
Over time, if there's good behavior, then it can be commuted to maybe a couple of years. It's no longer life sentence. It can be 20 years, 15 years, and then. So that's the argument of people. That's not what I'm saying. We're just debating what is going on, the discussions that are going on concerning this, what the president has done in terms of exercising his power to grant clemency to these people.
But anyway, you are aware that the father of this,
yes,
the in-law also said he had come out to say he had forgiven.
Yes.
Everyone connected to this crime. So yes, I wonder why we would have to cry more than the bereaved.
Anyway,
sincerely,
we'll see whether the list changes. The Attorney General has told us that they're still reviewing it. finally we'll have to
hear
from them, and then we'll be bringing you that story as soon as it breaks. A leadership newspaper, Senate steps down electoral bill for more consultations, and Dangote seeks legal backing for Nigeria First policy. On the electoral bill, the lawmakers would need more time, they say, to understand the general principles and details of the amendment bill. It also, there are matters that include delays in funding to INEC. That's part of what they'll have to look at. There's dispute over voters' register, interpretations of result transmission, litigation from party primaries, and weak enforcement of electoral offenses. And then to the Dangote story, Dangote says that the Nigeria First policy is very important. He explains that if implemented, this could boost Nigeria's GDP, generate jobs, and of course reduce import dependence. He cited examples of big economies like China, India, and the United States that adopted industrial policies that protect and promote domestic industries. You really cannot argue with this suggestion that the Nigeria First policy needs to be legislated. The benefits will be immense for the country. And to the lawmakers, you know, the chairman of INEC has already said he will tackle electoral offenses by the establishment of the commission. And they said they need more time to handle all of this. I don't know if they have a lot of time, especially when they have proposed November 2026 for the governorship and presidential elections.
Well, the the November governorship and presidential election is still a proposal also.
It is.
We very much doubt the feasibility of this, even though it comes with some merits and also some demerits. But again, I will go that full cycle to say that the king's business requires urgency. There should be urgency, a sense of urgency in governance, because the groaning of the people below poverty line is beginning to escalate and is beginning to rise. And we've seen what happened in Tunisia, what's happening in Madagascar. It came like a simple protest against a shortage of water. So I think that in administering this legislative, there should be what is called legislative priority. And I think that priority should be given to issues of electoral matters. That's very important, because the leadership would always reflect on the quality of governance that we have. And that was the essence of the AU signing the Protocol of Democracy, Development and Governance.
All right, New Telegraph this morning, we have Rivers State Council's 134 billion naira secretariat contract awarded by IBAS, the former sole administrator of the state. The contract was for the reconstruction of the State Secretariat complex in Port Harcourt. This was a decision by the State Executive Council presided over by Governor Sim Fubara. The contract was awarded to the China Civil Engineering Construction Company, or Corporation rather, during the emergency rule. The company was ordered to refund 20 billion naira mobilization fee already paid. What an unstable environment for doing business. You have to wonder why IBAS felt it necessary to award this contract under just 6 months in office. He was already largely viewed as an illegal occupant of the seat. And then he went on to start awarding contracts. And on the other hand, why would this company, the CECC, fall into this trap? You know, it beggars belief, because, you know, it's a 6 months government.
Yeah, that is one of the extension of the narrative of state and institutional capture that we've seen. We were on this seat when we cried out that there was a need for a proper handover, which entails comparing of notes and a proper handing over. And we also said that there was, we said as much that there was a need for Rear Admiral Ibn Ibas to give an account of stewardship of his 6 months tenure in Rivers State. He can't just gloss over. 6 months is an etchable tenure in the history of any polity. So there is a need for a proper accountability, and I think that it's not too late. IBAS should come out to render an account of stewardship of his budgetary expenditure within that.
Is it necessary now?
I think it's still.
The governor has taken over.
it's still necessary. Accountability is a very fundamental pillar in democracy. I think it's you can't just go to retirement like that without handing over, because actually you might have some point to explain the rationale behind some of these projects. He sits and is expected to have that helicopter view of what the state requires at that point in time. At least that is the assumption of the president that puts him in charge of that state. So we will be seeing a lot of policy somersaults if it doesn't come out to have that handshake and accountability with the sitting governor, Similaye Fubara. I think that's the missing point there.
I mean, certainly the reconstruction of the state secretariat was not that urgent. It did not.
I agree.
It wasn't necessary to
fantastically with you, if I have to use that word.
Yes. So I mean, it's something that is controversial in the state. Anyway, they have reversed it, and the corporation has to return that money.
Absolutely.
There's also, yesterday was the World Food Day. If you can pull up Vanguard newspaper, was the World Food Day, which was it's celebrated annually. It raises awareness about global hunger and poverty, and it's about food security and healthy diets and sustainable food systems for everyone. The First Lady, Oluremi Tinubu, noted that this is a collective responsibility for all Nigerians. She asked people to eat nutritious food and for partnerships. You're laughing. Partnerships to promote sustainable agriculture. I mean, when I was reading, it just read like a speech, because hunger is a serious problem in Nigeria today, particularly in this harsh economy. People are going to bed hungry. Did you know that an estimated 2 million children in Nigeria suffer from acute malnutrition?
Severe acute malnutrition.
And that's not all. There's also approximately 33.1 million Nigerians are projected to face high levels of food insecurity this year. So there are hotspots that we already know.
In addition with the 139 million that are living below poverty line.
Yes, there are hotspots we already know, but it's good to mention them again. There's Borno, Adamawa, Yobe, Zamfara, Sokoto, Katsina, Kaduna, Benue. It's dire. So, I mean, this is one of the stories that does not make it to the front page, but it is a serious problem. Okay.
Again, I would say that the narrative and the deep groans of poverty is going to rise to a very, and it's going to encroach on very dangerous precipice, and it calls for government action. Just a few days ago, the IMF released that poverty result, confirming what the World Bank had earlier stated in its forecast about Nigeria. I think that food inflation, food security is the epicenter of what we are talking about. If you look at world leaders, the way they define poverty, it's not just the absence of the right income. They talked about poverty being linked to the need for dignity and justice. So it shows that there is a lot of injustice on 139 million people. And I hope that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is taking this as a call to action. Of course, he's been able to record some substantial, level of macroeconomic stability. But the real-time microeconomic reality, which we have been shouting here, is missing. And that is where there is a gap from the policy framework to the people. If you observe what the Kaduna State government will be hosting, it's also emphasized food security from policy paper to public plate, the public relations imperative. It shows that there is a deep level of concerns across the value chain. Yesterday, the Minister of State for Agriculture was on air to explain what they are doing. The President has declared a state of emergency, and what they are now doing is to find a sustainable framework in the distribution chain, so that, because when you look at the cost of transporting food products from many of these food producing zones to the average consumer, especially to the south, it also jacks up the cost of production, and it trickles and it borders on the pricing, the consumer price index in terms of food.
So let's quickly go to the international headlines. A raft of stories here. Do we have footages in Cameroon? There's so many protests and clashes across the world. We'll start in Cameroon. Violence erupted after the opposition candidate Issa Chiroma Bakary claimed victory in the October 12 presidential election. The results are yet to be announced officially in an election where 92-year-old Paul Biya is seeking to remain in office. Then moving on to Tunisia, where tensions remain after protesters clashed with the police during a march against worsening pollution from a phosphate processing plant. Residents say more than 5 decades of industrial activity has caused cancer, continues to cause respiratory illnesses. And then over to the Americas in Peru, another clash, anger boiling over between the government and demonstrators in the capital, Lima. Here, violence left more than 100 people injured and some dead. The demonstrators are demanding that the government fight against high levels of crime and corruption. This comes less than a week after Jose Herri was sworn in as an interim president following the impeachment of his predecessor, Dina Boluarte. Also moving on to Madagascar, we had that story earlier. African Union suspended that country due to the coup that occurred there. And the Times newspaper, if we can pull that up, Trump sets up meeting with Putin to end, in quote, inglorious war. This meeting is to hold in Budapest. He's also meeting President Zelensky at the White House. And President Trump really redoubling his efforts to make sure that the war comes to an end. He's succeeded in having that ceasefire between the Palestinians and the Israelis. Will he succeed in Ukraine? And then finally, the Guardian newspaper, Israel and Hamas trade accusations as aid stalls. Your take on any of this? A lot of stories to pack in one session.
Yeah, you know, we've called for a reform in international governance. Just less than 7 years, we saw the reform from the transition from the League of Nations to the United Nations. And now we have seen the inefficacy of this league of what you would call an assembly of World War II conquerors. It has not been able to live to that mandate to save succeeding generations from the scourge of war. We've seen several wars across the globe, and I think there is a need to have a rethink on the instrument of governance that we would use. I'm sure that President Donald Trump should be learning some of the lessons from the fragile armistice, because we can't call that a ceasefire deal now. It's just a temporary cessation of arms. And of course, we've seen some underground offensive being carried out in that region. So I think that in coming up with a ceasefire deal between Russia and Ukraine, it should be coming up with an improved formula to address the internal, and it also shows the level of understanding of the internal issues between Russia and Ukraine. Well, because this war actually started in 2014.
Right.
I covered the United Nations debate in the Security Council between Russia and Ukraine, and there's a lot of underlying issues between this. So we cannot use a copy and paste formula to address some of this peace deal.
There is a school of thought that thinks that President Trump is being played by Putin, you know, and some others will say, do not underestimate President Trump. He's a deal maker. He knows what he's doing. Watch and see how far he's able to go with this. All right, that's where we call it a day for the paper review.
Always inspiring and exciting to be with you on this paper review.